So yeah, thank you so much, man. I appreciate you taking the time.
No worries.
Where you located?
In East Tennessee, we're in Knoxville,
Oh,
in
cool,
this
cool.
by the Smoky Mountains. So we used to live in Laguna Niguel
Oh,
in
wow. Yeah, right next to
yeah
me.
yeah in OC. So yeah, we moved last January.
Oh,
Yeah, about
wow.
just over a year.
How's
Yeah,
how was that going from here to there? Is you have family over there? Why'd you leave?
it's a very different change of life. We miss Orange County big time. Um, yeah, we wanted a bit more
You
space.
wanted to buy a house, like a nicer
We
house that you could
we
actually.
we wanted to buy a house. That was a big thing for sure. We did. We bought a house last year, last September.
Yeah.
So like these are I still have to renovate all of this up, but like this is an office. Like we've got our offices outside, and like I've got a gym next door outside the house, and so like we've got like a cool little setup in the backyard and stuff. So
That's what's
yeah,
up.
but yeah, and I'm part of like a gym here in Knoxville that yeah, there's a lot of cool shit. So I've got a good buddy of mine that runs a company in like plyometric testing,
Oh, cool.
like a jump testing device. So I do a lot of work with him. So there's a lot of good fits and stuff. It's not, I mean, we never say that this is going to be the end sort of thing, but we might always find our way back to Orange County. Who knows? But my wife's like, we're not moving again. So
You guys have kids, right?
yeah, we got almost 4-year-old and an 8-month-old.
Oh wow. So I mean, yeah, I don't know. It's hard to move them around, but sometimes it's cool. Hey, that's really cool. How's the 8 month old doing? They sleeping through yet?
Yeah, we're going through it right now. We're going through the mist of going back to what feels like having a newborn.
Yeah, that kind of refer.
Rough.
Dude, that's my 2 year old. My 2 year old, my wife, she sleeps in there fucking every night with her now. It's just like I'm like,
It's
that's
wild,
not
man.
good. Let's not.
It's wild. It's wild. So, well, yeah, it's rough going at the moment. He's still in the bedroom with us, and it's just like, come on, yeah, it's killing us. Like 4 times a night he's up. So it's like,
Oh,
oh,
yeah, that's brutal. I don't miss those.
yeah.
What's your accent? Where are you from?
I'm from the UK.
Oh, okay, cool, cool. I didn't know that. That's cool.
Yeah,
What part?
yeah. I'm from Southampton, which is like an hour south of London. It's not a lot that is that well known, Southampton, apart from the Titanic left from there. That's about it.
Oh,
We have
what brought you to the States?
the industry really, like our business. We started it in 2020, and within the first like 2 years, we realized that 85% of our customers are based in the US. So we were like, fuck it, let's see if we can get our asses out there.
Awesome.
Yeah, that was a big move for us. In 2019 we moved to the Middle East. We live in Abu Dhabi for 3 years, and then we moved back to the UK for a year to try and figure out a visa because it took us about 18 months to get a visa.
Yeah.
And then it was kind of a case of like, yeah, like where do we want to live? So yeah, we tried out Orange County, and yeah, we love Orange County.
Was
It's
that your
just
first spot in the U.S.? You're like, let's go here.
yeah,
I
yeah,
can spoil it. What was Abu Dhabi like during the pandemic? How did they handle it?
fucking wild, man. We didn't leave for 2 years.
Yeah, they were like hardcore lockdown.
Hardcore.
Yeah.
Hardcore.
Yeah, I mean that's funny because like I'm sure you know, right? Like Orange County is pretty conservative compared to LA, and like LA was just insanely like strict
Yeah.
and crazy to people up there, and then like down here was so chill. I remember I was at a playground with my son, and like this couple comes in and they're all fully masked up, and they're like young and they have a kid, and like none of us down here have masks. Our kids just run around outside, and they're like,
Yeah.
do you care? Like, is it okay if we take? They're like, yeah, dude, do whatever you want. Like, because where we live in LA, people will like shun you.
Yeah.
You'll get chased off. I was like,
Yeah.
no, bro, maybe don't sneeze in my face or something, but we're outside. Like, I'm not
We're
worried.
outside. Yeah. Get some
Yeah,
vitamin D. You need it. Fuck.
right.
Whereabouts in OC are you?
I'm in Newport Beach.
Oh, you're in Newport. Okay. Awesome.
Yeah, that was
Awesome.
always my goal was to get here. I got to like Orange County and I slowly moved further and further down the coastline until I got was able to afford being out here. Not
Awesome.
owning. It's like one of those things I'll never be able to own in this area. I'll have to move very inland and own if I want to do that or move.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a weird thing, isn't it? Like I know quite a few people that like, yeah, but like we don't need to own a home. We'll just invest money in other things, and that will be, that'll be a retirement, or
Yeah.
we'll push money into business, or we'll push, yeah. So
I
it's
mean, it can make sense if you look at it, depending on where you're at with property taxes and what you're
yeah,
interested. So, yeah, I
yeah,
mean, yeah, out here, I mean, I think we have so much foreign money that buys up these places like cash. So it's like I've looked. There's nothing less than 2 million, like anywhere near me, and usually you
Yeah.
need like 30% down, like at least. So it's like a good chunk. So I'm like, we're
Yeah,
we're
you're like
good.
500K to just slap down on the house,
Yeah, exactly.
and then you have a 15 grand mortgage. You're
Yeah,
like,
wild.
oh,
And not no obviously no land at all. But so guys, you probably know who I got. I have Mr. Matthew McKinnis Watson on with me today. The plyo. Did I say that right?
you did, McKinnis Watson. Yeah,
Okay, okay, cool. You go by McKinnis, you go by Matt.
I go by Matt.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So just kind of like the plyo guru. Like, I just kept seeing a lot of stuff, and then I didn't realize a lot of it was coming from you. I talked to Pat a lot. He talked about a lot of this stuff, and so I don't know. I'm just curious, like how did you become like a specialist? Like, what made you into
Mm.
plyos in the first place? Because I always think it's cool when someone like doesn't like one of the things I hated the whole reason I got into social media is because Dr. Mike actually I did not like this prevalence of I'm the authority on absolutely everything. And I was
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
that makes no sense. So I always find it really interesting when someone finds like one aspect of what they're into that they really dive into. So how did you end up getting obsessed with plyometrics?
So, like, very quick kind of run through of kind of where I'm at is got into basketball when I was 18, far too late. I played soccer the whole of my life. Found out that you need quite a lot of skills to play well in basketball rather than just being able to, get up and down the court effectively. But I found quite quickly that I was pretty athletic. And yeah, spent 2 years playing basketball and then transitioned into being kind of pushed into the track and field world. And I started high jumping at 19. Um, and I met the coach that first started out coaching me in the high jump was someone that had 30 years of plyometric and dynamic training, whether it was speed, plyos, jumping. He had a lot of experience, and that had really come from the Eastern Bloc. And yeah, a lot of Hungarian, a lot of Russian influence,
Were they good at jumping, like in the Olympics and stuff, or just their genetics just sucked?
the Eastern Europeans.
Yeah,
I mean, they've always dominated. They've
yeah.
always dominated in the jumps.
Oh, they do?
Yes,
Okay, I don't have no clue.
absolutely,
I
absolutely.
just think of black dudes winning those. I guess that's not usually the case.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So yeah, us less gifted white folk have to find other ways to get it done, right? We're not blessed with these enormously long Achilles tendons.
Right?
So anatomically, we've got these short little Achilles in comparison to the little bald calves at
Yeah.
the top of just behind the knee. Yeah, those guys kind of East African descendants definitely just get that gift. So
That's the
yeah,
only
so
thing that hurts them in bodybuilding is their calves usually.
right, exactly. So yeah, I started high jumping and had a strange kind of career where it was kind of ultimately, if I think I started the sport a little earlier, I could have been pushing towards more of an Olympic kind of potential, but yeah, it's kind of short of that. And in the midst of kind of getting to kind of peak of my career, Eric, my coach, fell ill at the time, so he stepped away from coaching, and I kind of inherited this group of like top national and international junior level like high jumpers, triple jumpers, and heptathletes. And I never coached a day in my life before, but
And you
I
were
was
still
this
competing or you had done?
I was still competing. Well, it's always one of those things. You can't compete and coach. It
Yeah,
just never works. So
that's
you
what I'm
just
wondering.
become you kind of fall at the wayside as the athlete and then just become the coach. And
Okay.
I had a baptism of fire in terms of how I figure out how to coach. So in the midst of being, and I think where I probably got it wrong as someone that was entering a sport at something like 19 is that I wasn't just going in as a kid that just jumped. I was going in with like a slightly, I don't know, a bit more wiser mindset of trying to question everything that we were doing. And it was almost like I was coming in as a coach rather than an athlete. And I think honestly, since probably the first year I started training, I was inquisitive about all the jumping and plyometrics that we were doing. So, and everything that we did was different to everyone else on the track. There were so many other training groups. And so I honestly started this email chain with Eric over probably a decade, and we probably had about 20,000
Oh,
emails in it of just like people ask me like, what was your mentorship like? Or like, how can you provide the best mentorship? And I was like, you can't. Like, you need to find someone that you resonate with at the perfect moment in your life
yeah.
for you to be influenced by someone of that seniority and like master of a craft. And yeah, I was just a sponge to it. And I honestly, I think since 2008 probably was the first kind of, I'd say the first year that I really showed interest in it, and it's just continued to grow. And every step along the way of the journey until I'd say honestly about 2021, maybe 2020, when I really started to push kind of talking about it online, is that I was never ever satisfied with looking at what others were doing and being like, yeah, they are kind of they're doing everything that they could be doing. Whereas like I'd look at other groups training and I'm thinking, you're missing out on so much when it comes to dynamic movement. And even in other jumps groups, like in high jumpers or triple jumpers or long jumpers, and I was like, there's still something that you could be doing that you're potentially not. And it has led me down everything from world class athletics to looking at research in it to now talking in gen pop situations of being like, how much of an impact can this make to someone that maybe stopped doing collegiate sport at the age of 25 and hasn't done anything for 10 years and wants to still be a good mover and as a father in their mid 30s, to people that are now in their 60s and 70s that are like, it's either now or never. I'm either going to expand my life expectancy, or there's going to be a pretty significant trajectory downhill to to the grave, to be brutally honest. Um, and it's funny when I'm talking about us both having that kind of thing of being in Orange County. One of my buddies who lives in Orange County, Derek Garza, he's a doctor of physical therapy. He's been doing some work with a woman that had a hip fracture. She's in her late 60s, maybe early 70s, and he got some crazy feedback in saying that he's not only doing strength training with her, he's now doing some plyometric stuff. And her husband turned around and said, "I think you've changed her life. Like I think you've given her 10 years of life." Like extra to what we assumed that she was gonna, and children were saying the same thing to Derek, and it's like, wow, like the impact of that and keeping dynamic movement. Like I look at people talk, they see me as the plyo guy, and I see myself as the dynamic movement specialist more than anything.
Yeah.
Like I look at everything that is dynamic, whether if it has a landing and a takeoff, I'm probably um looking at it, and I'm trying to figure out, how do I reverse engineer it to someone that can't move to all the way up to world class sport, because ultimately it's all the same.
Yeah, so that is cool. You don't see a lot of physical therapists doing plyos with their people. What are some of the main benefits that people might not be aware of? Like, I mean, how does it compare to like increasing bone density to just normal strength training? What are some other like general health benefits?
So the bone density thing is enormous, by the way, and I think people assume that just resistance training and strength training is enough. Where you can see changes in it. I've got another good friend who's a trainer in New York City, and she got into plyometrics when she was 51 or 2, got into doing a lot more dynamic stuff, and she's now kind of pushing that group of people, like women over 50, doing dynamic movement. And she's genuinely seen like the significance between when she was just doing resistance training with her clients to now using plyometrics. Like a lot of people are reversing osteopenia and serious bone issues where she wasn't seeing that in resistance training. She was like, we were doing significant strength training. And I believe it because I've seen her do plenty of heavy lifting. I've seen her use kettlebells, but the significant change of adding in that kind of shock to the bone is producing far better results with that. So now, obviously, you have to know how to get into dynamic landings. There's not just cool, you're 60 years old, go do plyometrics. No, there's a meticulous way to get into it. But the bone conversation is actually far deeper than I think it is kind of deemed. And also there's this idea that it has to look like, you know, elite athletic plyometrics, when actually you're just talking about pretty rudimentary landings and takeoffs that don't, they don't have to look crazy. You just have to be stimulating the system by landing and taking off rapidly. It doesn't matter if you land, from 2 or 3 inches from your previous jump. There still is a massive benefit from it. The other component is training the brain. The
Yeah.
brain and how it organizes itself in space. And again, that is the longevity piece that is coming into a lot of conversations of modern fitness trends. In that no one is really paying attention to the level of central nervous system control, understanding where you are in space. Like there's nothing worse than creating an injury from doing something as simple as like you see people tear like pop an Achilles by stepping out behind them sometimes,
I've seen that.
especially people in older ages. Obviously, in
Hmm.
athletic populations, this is a bit different. There could be multiple other reasons, but I'm of a massive belief in older populations that they don't know where they are proprioceptively in space, and their awareness to navigate where to put their feet down. In kind of imagine you were to kind of draw a circle around your body. I say that like poorly trained individuals that don't do a lot in terms of being airbound, taking off and leaving the ground, they almost have this like they have like a pinprick on the ground. That's about as far as they can go away from their center of mass. Whereas someone that moves in multiple directions has a much larger like heat map around them that they can land in because their brain understands where they can put their foot down. Whether if I put my foot like slightly splayed out, I can handle that. I can deal with maybe internally rotating my hip a little bit more. And I think that's a missing component to jumping, to consistent landing and takeoff based actions. And that then feeds into our ability to anticipate and pre-activate the whole system, whether it is from the lower leg all the way through the core. But if you're looking to prevent falls, one of the biggest things that you can have is the ability to anticipate what's about to happen. And you often see that. You see that in people. You're like, oh, they just missed being able to stabilize quick enough. They missed that opportunity to create system stiffness, to just decelerate their body. And you're like, whoa, well, this person was strength training. And you're like, yeah, but in the most static way possible, like they're in the safest environment possible in terms of like you are so stable when you create force. Let's say through a deadlift, my feet are planted. There's no randomness to maybe the orientation of my upper body and how maybe when I've tripped over something, maybe my right shoulder's taking a spin in whilst my left shoulder's kind of moving away from me. Like, can I organize my body? Can I anticipate? Can I pre-activate the right musculature to then go boom, or I can stabilize myself there and not just face plant. So, and so like it makes me laugh when it comes to the full industry of that kind of longevity piece. It's like people talk about, cool, we need bone health, and I'm like, great. Do you know what also would help you from not shattering your bones is having the anticipatory qualities to not hit the deck in the first place.
Right.
So you have to have both sides of the coin there. You have to train the brain and you have to train the structures side by side. And obviously when you're doing good levels of plyometrics, you're still getting both of those. So and then if you just kind of reverse it back, like what if I'm talking to a 30 to 40-year-old male or female right now, they're like, cool, but like that doesn't really impact me massively right now. I will say this: if you do a good body of work right now, it will last for a decade or so. On If you did 2 years of good work, you're probably going to keep that bone health for a significant amount of time if you just live like a normal person from then onwards. Like I believe it. It's not going to have this horrific downfall. You're going to have built a good quality base to be able to I can kind of do the minimum now rather than being like, oh, I have to chase something. And there's also that part as well that one of the significant things that we lose is the ability to create force instantaneously. And that drops off every decade, that drops off significantly. You're talking like 20% of output in terms of a power kind of metric. So if you want to feel good. You want to feel sprightly. Your ability to be quick and just burst out of something has to be there because you lose it quickly.
Yeah, man, that there's so much there. It's funny when you're talking about like the mind part, like it makes me think about like the fear, right, that some people have. Like you're talking about, like usually they do have a center of mass that's just so far forward, and they have no sense of what's around them. But I remember I was training this girl. I did this thing, Dr. Phil and the Doctors. I don't know if you know those shows. They had like a weight loss competition, and I trained one of the. I had ended up they wanted me to train one of the contestants, and so they would like come in my gym and they would film and stuff. And she was overweight. She wasn't like extremely overweight like some of the other ones. And so I had her doing some plyos, and I just remember like I had her doing the smallest thing. I think it was a 6 inch, right? And so she like is like so afraid to do it, so afraid, and like they're filming. I'm like being all positive, and then she fucking does it, and she's like so happy. I'm like yeah, yeah, and then like she does it again, and then she's like, and then all of a sudden she used up whatever she had. She's like I can't do it. And she's like so afraid, like I don't, and so like I'm like you just did it 2 times, like come on, and then they ended up editing it, make me look like an asshole because I'm like, just jump on the box. So they didn't show that. Like she
Of
already done it,
course.
like we high fived. But is there a way to like mentally get over that? I mean, obviously we could do some things to move your center of mass back, but like, what do you think? Like, how do you get in the mindset of being like, okay, let's start jumping, even though it's something I've never done?
I mean, a big component to a lot of it is to take away the external, whether it's gratification, whether it is the stimulus, whether it's an achievement of clearing a hurdle or jumping onto a box from a landing, like take away that
Yeah.
completely. Everything is just you and gravity and whatever you can produce in the initial jump to then land and then hit the ground and then propel back up. Whatever your jump height is going to be your next landing and how much force you're going to receive from the output that you've, output. So if I jump 6 inches into the air, my body will understand that I'm going to fall from 6 inches and that, you know, I'm not I'm not at a level where I can produce way more than what my body can handle. If you're a beginner or you're someone getting back into it, your body is very good at self-regulating. And you always hear that analogy of like the human body is way more capable of what you think it can do, especially in that kind of given moment. And the old like if you put your fingers in a plug socket, the thing that's shooting you across the room is your muscles' ability to contract at such a high degree. But we just can't. We don't. Our brain has so much inhibition that it kind of backs it down and says, "Oh no, if you do that, you're going to hurt yourself. You're going to tear muscles and so on." So we're very protective in nature. So that's why I always call them self-prescribing plyometrics. It's on the spot or with a little bit of locomotion moving forward, sideways, backwards, and it is very much based on how high can you jump is what you're going to handle. And if you jump a little bit too high and you're like, whoa, I couldn't handle that, then you just reset and you get back into a flow of something that is manageable. So I honestly, with 99% of the population that I work with, I don't use anything but the ground and that individual. And it also becomes very accessible. You
Right.
don't need anything. You can just
$70 plyo box.
yeah, and ultimately it's the safety of everything else around that then. So if I stack it off the top of this plyo box, can I fall off? Like I've got people that do stuff in apartments in the middle of New York. So like who knows what their neighbors say below them, but they are able to land and take off in a small space and we can get a lot done without any equipment. So it becomes very self-regulating in the fact that I induce the takeoff with the amount of power that I've already got. That then provides me with a great eccentric stimulus of when I land. So that's great forces that I'm going to receive. And I'm creating this adaptation where I'm feeding the body with lots of stimulus. It's now getting stronger. So in the next few weeks, maybe my takeoffs are higher. So then the eccentric stimulus becomes even greater. So it's this self-fulfilling kind of prophecy of like, as I improve, as my brain gets faster, as my reaction time gets quicker, as my ability to change the landing to the takeoff motion gets better, I have this continually improving system. And all I'm doing is just using my own body weight to do that. I don't need anything. I don't need an external stimulus. Like gravity is horrendous. I've got to fight it all the time. So the more that I throw at it, the more I get back at it, and it's just me and the ground at that point.
Yeah, it's funny. Like I don't know why trainers like why we have to put them on an implement. Like, I thought it'd be good TV, but yeah, you're right. Like what is that the like what is the
It's
point of like putting them, especially when they're first starting? So you talked about landing a little bit. So what are you looking for in a landing? Like what do you consider like a good landing?
um do you know what like the idea of a mechanic the right position to land in. I think it has to be more of a holistic viewpoint. I'm looking at what the whole system is doing based on that landing. So I want to be in a well stacked position from the moment that I land. That might look different at the bottom of the landing. We're going to have more of a, let's say a typical squatting pattern. Maybe it's not deep like a squatting pattern, but you're going to see a little bit of hip hinge. You're going to see a little bit of knee flexion, and you're going to see forward translation of the shin. You're going to see a very natural kind of concertina of the body. But you do want to see that in a natural kind of even flexion of the body so that it can extend kind of simultaneously together. Excuse me. And so I want my head to toe stacked in a good position. I don't want to hinge massively at the hips and have my head way over my toes. No, I want to be pretty upright when I initially receive force. Like we are in the best position when we're enormously strong, stood up in a good, stiff, whole system kind of position. Everyone thinks that like athletic posture that you hear about is like the primary situate, the best way to receive force. And I'm like, actually, if you're just stood bolt upright, you are pretty strong. If you were to unrack a load of like something that's like 3 times your max
Oh yeah.
PR of a squat, if you just stood there, you're like, great. And you're like, cool, now sit down 6 inches. It's not going to feel as good. So that's the kind of the silly analogy that you can throw to it. But really, yeah, if you stack the body well, like initially, if the head, the shoulder, the hip, the knee, the ankle, all on top of each other, you're going to be pretty safe. And that then kind of will dictate the position of where you're landing on your foot. And you're probably going to be wanting to land just behind the balls of your foot. You can allow the heel to touch. It doesn't have to be that the heel has to hover. There's a massive misnomer in that. And I think people assume that you're not loading the Achilles well when you do that. But actually, when you land in like a full foot scenario, you're going to get forward translation of the shin anyway with knee flexion. So what does it do? It lengthens the Achilles and you get use of the Achilles out of that. So it's yeah, you're still getting that stretch reflex happening from the tendons there. So yeah, good full foot position, but ultimately it's all dictated from how you stack the body well.
Oh, that lines right up to everything that I always talk about. I just named my garage gym the Stack Lab. So it's like, I'm always breaking up my rib cage model and stuff. So, I mean, I'm assuming you've got some like background in like ECM stuff, like Bill Hartman's model a little bit. Are you familiar with that?
I am familiar with it, but I don't have much of a background in it. I can't say that I've been through like extensive education on it. I've listened to a lot of people. Like I know that you spoke to Angus Bradley recently, and
Yeah.
I've learned through people like that are putting it into very typical training conversations. This is not necessarily that we're getting into the nitty gritty of the anatomical models. I'm just making sense of it from a general training standpoint.
Are you familiar with like his whole propulsion cycle, ER to IR to ER kind of stuff?
Yeah, yeah, that's pretty typical. Yeah, and it kind of rolls with supination into pronation and then into supination with rolling through like a typical gait cycle for sure. And I think that does kind of roll typically within a few kind of biomechanical models as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, very, very natural to see that kind of if you're looking at landing mechanics front on, like you are going to see some internal rotation happening there for sure. And ultimately the big thing that I want to see in dynamic movement is that you're coming off the big toe as you move through the foot. Because if you're not, then we're not getting ultimately we're not seeing then the knuckle of the foot and the ball of the foot um on the medial side really getting used effectively, and I think that corresponds massively with extension patterns from the hip. So yeah, those are just typical things that I would observe. You're looking at someone side on, you're looking at someone front on. um the stacking the body is important, and then yeah, moving through the big toe is important.
Yeah. Um, why don't you? So, are you like? Did you come up with the tier stuff? Was that your thing, or did you get that from your guy?
So that comes from Eric, and I've kind of spearheaded it and just been like, I'm gonna really push this and kind of show the powers of where that all comes from. I've probably I've probably expanded on it so much in the last like 8 to 10 years as well, and try to really like allow it to be pushed into a lot more, just into many more domains, sort of thing. Like bringing it into Gen Pop. Like, what would the tiered system look like for Gen Pop? What would it look like in different sports? What would it look like if we were to add in, different formats of movement? But ultimately, it very much does go back to very good, solid principles that Eric would have preached, honestly, back to, probably to the 80s. And he actually took a lot of the structure of the tiered system principles from his coach in the 70s, Zoltan Tenke, who's a Hungarian track coach. So like the idea of the deep tier comes from Zoltan, and Zoltan was doing that in the 70s with Eric, and who knows when he was doing that before he moved to Canada, because they had a big influx of Polish and Hungarian, like Eastern Bloc kind of coaches. They came to Canada to help out with their national track program in the 70s, because they held the Olympics in Munich in 76. Oh no, sorry, in Montreal. Sorry, in Munich, in Montreal, in Canada. So I think they wanted to try and dominate at those Olympic Games.
They do good.
Um,
Did that make a difference? Do you remember?
I think so. In track and field, I think they definitely did a
You don't
lot
really think
better
of
than.
Canadians being that good normally in track and
No,
field,
no, no. Apart from Ben Johnson,
right? He was
um,
jacked. What?
he
So,
was.
I mean, I think a lot of people kind of know the tiers, but maybe we can break them
Mm,
down just real fast. I mean, I think
mm.
you have your ping, light, medium, and deep. Is that right? Or are there like sub tiers?
Yeah. So we've got. So we'll start from the bottom of the pile, or bottom of the pyramid. Light tier movements, very rudimentary. Like it is very fast on the ground, very very typical stiff kind of overcoming-esque kind of plyometric movements, but the forces are a lot lower. We're trying to execute the contact time really, as fast as we can handle, but we're not trying to exert as much force through that as you would do when you move up to more submaximal or maximal levels. So then when you step up from the light tier into the medium tier would be deemed submaximal, very kind of typical extensive plyometrics. Where ultimately, for me, when I talk about submaximal or medium tier plyometrics, I'm talking about movements that are truly plyometric, but you're able to bring a little bit more relaxation into it. You're not like, all out here. It's kind of, we're still pushing it, but I'm just dialing it down so that I could still kind of have a conversation with someone.
Like a
But
bounding ice skater or something? Or
I mean, so how I look at the tiers is all based on amplitude. So all movement patterns can go into those different amplitudes. So whether you're moving on two, whether you're moving in a split stance, a split exchanging stance, from one leg to the other, or just using one leg, all of these movement patterns can move between very rudimentary formats, submaximal formats, and then the ping tier, which is maximal. Okay, that is true. I'm getting off the ground as fast as I can, and I'm going for as much height or distance or speed as I can with that fast takeoff. So the goal really is to make sure that within all of those three tiers, it's still very fast on the ground, because the the induction of speed has to be met with the output and the force that you receive. You can't you get very different adaptations when it's all force but it's slow on the ground, or it's all speed and there's no force. So you're either dancing or you're stuck in the mud, sort of thing. So you have to meet it in the middle, and we have to find this very reactive component where it's super fast, but you're also getting a big pop out of that. And everyone's probably done that in their life. They've hit a couple of jumps and they've been like, whoa, and they've just kind of pinged off of the floor. That's the sensation that we're trying to chase as we get towards like maximal intense kind of, or ping tier based plyometrics. And then kind of to support all of that, we have our deep tier, which is not per se plyometric because it doesn't have that reactive element. It is more of a supporting tier that uses much longer contact times because of the range of motion that you go through. So imagine you're doing like jumping, like split, like a split squat pattern where you're exchanging front leg to back leg. The aim is to get into almost that back leg touching the knee down. The front leg's in like a 90-degree position at the knee and at the hip. So you're getting through great length, big ranges of motion. But when you add a landing to that, man, oof, it does some muscular damage. I can tell you that. If you've never done deep tier jumps, just try a few sets of those jump exchanges. I'm telling you, you'll wake up with DOMs you haven't felt in a
Oh
long
yeah.
time. And it doesn't matter how strong you are. The eccentric demand of taking tissue through that length at speed is significant. Significant. So it's yeah, those three, light, medium, ping is those are your true plyometrics. Deep tier is that supporting tier that is, it almost becomes, for a lot of people, I try to take away this idea of trying to do it maximally. Let's do it sub maximally, very relaxed, and it becomes kind of therapeutic in a way.
Oh yeah.
People love it for their joints. They really enjoy taking the tissue through a very different feeling to just doing like, let's really hit the ground fast, rapid, reactive. Your body gets tired of it. Then your muscular system's like, I'm done. Let's just go. Let's go low and slow. Let's
Yeah.
it's almost like it's almost like a dynamic form of an isometric.
Yeah. It's like because you could do a huge deep range squat and like you're not necessarily gonna get the same yielding out of your tissues because you can just lock shit up and just move through space and explode up
Exactly.
like bilaterally if you are doing the deeper tier yielding. And so after I talked to Angus, not the last time, but the time before, we talked a lot about plyos from you, and I started doing a lot more, and I put that on my members channel because, like you said, you look like a fucking jackass if you're not good at it. But it's also really good at showing you your imbalances, right? Like I got an arm swing that's a little wonky, and like that's another tell that like maybe wasn't a normal one for me. But yeah, whenever you are doing like the deep yields, and you're right, I'm assuming it's got to be only that tier because the other ones is it's more about the overcoming like you're talking about and we're not getting the yield,
Yes.
it's less ground contact time, but that's a good way just to force your body as long as you keep the shape to get those tissues to actually yield under load. And I think that that's got a lot of benefits potentially for bodybuilders. I feel like as bodybuilders there's like a big like I think about, I don't, you probably don't know, but a couple years ago, a guy named Brad Rowe. I mean, this must have been long, like 6 or years ago, but he was real athletic before he was a bodybuilder and kind of didn't, I don't think kept it up and then tried to do it some more. And he would do all
Mm.
these plyometrics. He ended up fucking rupturing his quad tendon, I think doing a jump shot. Like, so, so it's like, do you think that there's the juice is worth the squeeze for bodybuilders? What do you think are some of the potential benefits they could have from introducing plyometrics and maybe like how would they start? What are your options? What are your ideas on how they should
Mm.
start if it is something good for them?
I'm always an advocate for giving a bit of yin to the yang that you always do, right? It's that idea of kind of like you were mentioning, right? Everything that you do as a bodybuilder is overcome force. Everything. Eccentrically, I'm fighting. I'm fighting. Everything is I'm resisting to get into this eccentric load, and then I'm going to resist to get back out of it. So doing some yielding stuff, phenomenal. Just your tissue's going to thank you. Your knees are going to thank you when you get back to squatting or when you get back into reverse lunges or it really serves well. It's all well and good kind of, it's almost like it's like taking a relatively blunt knife and just kind of, I'm just digging away at something, right, for a long period of time. Sometimes we need to just say, do you know what? I need to focus a little bit on my health to enable me to be able to do this stuff rather than constantly poking the bear. It's so big advocate for that. Just even if you did it once a week, phenomenal. If you want a pump, my gosh, do some deep tier oscillations. So like get into a split stance, get down low. You're not allowed to come out of that extension pattern. Let's say you're doing some split squats or some lunges, some heavy squats. After you've done a set, superset it with some oscillations. You will never have felt a blood pump like it. It's almost like getting on a leg extension and just doing an enormous amount of reps, but it's everywhere from your glutes to your
Yeah.
quads to your hamstrings. It is
Yeah.
so prominent in terms of how like how much effect it has, I guess metabolically as well. There's a big effect on that. So yeah, I think in bodybuilding, I mean, I saw Chris Bumstead. It like
Yeah.
he finished bodybuilding, and then the first thing he did was like I want to feel good moving again, and it's kind of the same conversation about like some bodybuilders saying, the big piece to Ronnie Coleman's success was chasing the strength side of things as well as doing typical bodybuilding. I think it is something that when you chase the same stimulus all the time, there can be a very quick plateau to what you're trying to do. So it's like, why not give your body an eccentric demand that is so far different from what you're normally used to? And I'm also an advocate for, if you want that mind body connection, doing some dynamic movement is it can be really preferable. Like all of a sudden you're like, wow, when I've done some stiff plyometrics before I squat, like my body's ability to brace becomes way better. Like, it could be a certain lift you think, fuck, my core is so limiting to what I'm trying to get into when I do this. Like, I went for a stupid phase. I was doing Hatfield squats for a while and I was like, oh, this went pretty well. I got to like 440. I could hardly put 300 pounds on my back and squat normally. And I was like, wow, like the difference of just taking away my core control was phenomenal. And I'm like, that's a limiting factor if I'm using like a squatting pattern to let's say improve hypertrophy of my quads or hamstrings or glutes or whatever. So yeah, there's a little bit on mind body connection, having a better central nervous system control. Absolutely. Like I'm going to be able to fire musculature much greater if I do so by shocking it with dynamic movement like plyometrics. Absolutely.
Yeah.
There's definitely a benefit in that. And I like that very different yielding side to things when it comes to using the deep tier. Is it going to be massive in my program? Probably not, but I might sprinkle it in. Also, do you know what? If you are in a phase of training where the worst thing you can think of is going back into that gym and doing another session of X, Y, and Z, you're like, why not just throw in an insert of something that is enjoyable and that makes you feel youthful? Because jumping is like it is like drinking from the fountain of youth. Like no one ever's like jumping's boring. Straight every single time I give someone that doesn't do a lot of jumping, they're like, shit, I miss jumping around like this. So yeah, that's my 2 cent on a in a world that I don't work within. But
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's what I'm saying. This is a whole new audience that you could end up on your shit if we can talk them up into some of the benefits. But yeah, I like, so let's say, I actually do what you were talking about too on the Bulgarians. I do exactly what you're talking about. I'll drop the weights and then do some plyos. It's fucking brutal. My ass is just on fire so bad.
yeah, yeah.
Um, what about like, do you do any upper body plyos? Is that something you mess with?
So it's interesting, right? I definitely go through this. I don't know whether it's just like a maturing kind of philosophical thing with my mind, but like a few years ago, I definitely would have been very dubious to get people to do something that I have not done a lot of. Like I'm very dubious in terms of people saying, "Oh, I'm using like an idea of plyometrics for my upper body," and I'm like, anatomically, I don't think your wrist is ready to receive load like that. It doesn't have supporting structures. It doesn't have an arch. It doesn't have an Achilles. So landing on your hands, it has a limiting, you know, side to it. Also, it's not fast enough as a stimulus to stimulate the body like a plyometric does. So what you're going to see is you're going to see a lot more landings than you would do a full cycle. You might see people do plyo push-ups in inverted commas, but in terms of the contact or the time of the contact that you have on your hands, it's like 4 times the amount of time.
Yeah.
Because if you were to actually do a plyometric, it would be you wouldn't take the pecs through a length. You
Just
would just be
yielding only.
landing. Yeah, that's more of a deep tier esque format. So I played with some funny things last year. Of like if I was to do upper body plyometrics in inverted commas, this is what I would do. And I played a lot more with like dropping into a hang. So it's almost like let's say the pull-up bar in the rack is at chest height and I'm stood on a massive box and I step off the box and I catch. Now, I'm not an advocate for saying go away and do this because I think that, there's some potential there for it to be pretty detrimental in terms of the effect it has on like deep into your lats. So don't go home and just throw yourself onto a pull-up bar. So like it sounds funny, but I started by playing with it by doing like a kipping sequence as like a CrossFitter does. You have no idea how much. So the swing into it and then the pull up and then catch again into that where you're seeing the chest swing forward and you're almost like showing your armpits. That like sudden drop into it is the same mechanism, but you find out quite quickly how much that musculature and like deep in your armpit those tendons, like how much they get affected by that. It's pretty significant. So like if you're trying to get your first muscle up, like that strength of mechanism is massive. Like pulling elbows down and having a huge contraction through your lats like that, I think do some drop landings into that. It's what rock climbers are doing. I've literally recently got into rock climbing, so I'm learning a lot more about that world of things. So yeah, I've played with that idea, doing some kips, do do sets of like 15 kips, do like high repetitions because you once you get into a rhythm, you're like, oh, okay, cool. Do a couple of sets of them and you know about it. And then the other side was actually using a TRX. And
Oh,
so
I
I
think
was
I saw
doing
this. Yeah.
yeah, so I was doing like so you can almost be into, let's say you're at 45-degree angle, the TRX is kind of, let's say by nipples as if you're going to do like a very kind of narrow grip push up. And then I did a few sequences where I tempted it out. So I did like a little push off of it and then thrusted my arms up above so I would drop into it and catch again.
Yeah.
Similar mechanism to the kipping sequence. I also then did like an exchanging one. So
Oh
one arm
yeah, some
stays tight.
reciprocation. That's good.
So boom, boom. And you know what? What's really interesting is I kind of see the TRX as like the tendon in the whole of the anatomical structure in that it gets like a jerking effect to it.
Oh yeah.
So I did the same with like a supine lying version where I was just holding on to one side of the TRX and then rapidly dropping out of it and trying to avoid like rotating away from that hand. And they were really quite unique and just a very different kind of stimulus. Can I say that I did a training block of it? No, but just playing a little bit with it for someone like myself that deals a lot with landings and understanding the forces of landings, it was kind of relaying a few messages to my body and being like, oh, okay, this is definitely a kind of like a shock stimulus to the body. So those are some of the kind of methods that I've used. I've also actually played with when we were talking about apply a push-up, like what would that look like? I've done it so instead of landing on the hands, I grasp a med ball and I squeeze the med ball either side, try to avoid getting my palms onto the top of it. So I try to just grip hard in and then I bounce the med ball off of the ground with my arms at kind of just slightly flex at the elbow. That's crazy the amount that you're having to kind of whole body stiffness. Because what you'll find is a lot of upper body plyometrics are really limited by what your core can do. It's
Hmm.
crazy because you don't realize how much your hips control force in lower body plyos. You don't have your hips there. All you've got is your anterior core when it comes to like catches and like when I was doing those TRX movements, the anterior core soreness I got the next day, I was like, oh my gosh, I felt like I did like an hour of core work, but I was like, no, I'm just doing upper body stuff. So definitely a limitation with the core when it comes to the upper body stuff. So I was trying to do things like on my knees instead of doing it out straight onto my hands. It's almost like, a novice trying to get into push-ups, right? You actually find that it's not their upper body that's the weak component. It's actually the whole body being able to create like a stiff board to press through.
Exactly.
Um, so yeah, very, very much kind of a playful idea towards it. You just have to understand it's a much longer contact point with you landing on your hands, or like I've used med ball throws, but again, like you throw, you catch, release. There's such a long contact with it, but I still think that there is some worthiness in using some of that stuff because I think the upper body likes it, and I think most importantly the ability for like the slings of the body to interconnect, like having contralateral, like right shoulder to left hip stiffness and being able to brace effectively to really harness energy, I think it does have a quite a good effect. If you learn anything, learn from the throwers in the track and field world because they are the biggest and best movers on the planet when it comes to it. Like guys that weigh 220 to 320 pounds in that like part of athleticism, they are phenomenal. So it's yeah, got to learn from those guys.
I've seen some of their training. It looks nuts. But one of the things that you're just making me think of, especially with like the upper body one with a ball, is and
Mm,
you talk about stiffness, and there's a lot of components of stiffness. Obviously, we have like the tendons and ligaments and the core. Like a lot of that stiffness can come from just the pressure that you have internally too, right? Like being able to manage that. So
yeah.
something I see a lot, what I work on a lot with people, especially the more hypermobile, but anybody is
Mm,
like we talk about the eccentric yield. A lot of people don't have that. A lot of bodybuilders don't have that on their pecs because they just as soon as they try to lower, right, the scapula just falls together and they're not
yeah.
getting true tension on here. There's no intrathoracic pressure at all. So I'm just imagining if you're doing that plyometric with that ball, you're learning how to stiffen up through there, and you're not going to be like winging and flailing around. That could potentially be a good way to translate something to having more eccentric yield in the actual weight room.
Big time, big time. Well, and I think that there's a little bit on that kind of like inhibition piece as well. It's kind of like I imagine someone that loses control can also be inhibited to be like to get into a deep stretch as well, and then it gets to a point and it's just like you're almost just like you've kind of lost engagement
Yeah,
altogether.
exactly.
So yeah, so those can it's it's our ability to relax and contract. And that's the important part, right? Everyone wants to brace and they want to stabilize and create massive stiffness, whether it's joint, whether it's whole body system stiffness. The magic is in how you relax and then instantaneously contract, and that whole body communicates or that whole joint communicates um, to say, turn on or turn off these components and to time it effectively. Best movers in the world do things smoothly and with grace because they are the best at that part. It is relax and contract kind of method. So, and when you can relax and then contract instantaneously, I think you can tap into a lot more of the tissue's ability to create more reflexive components. Like I talk about it in a way that like all movements have overcoming and yielding qualities. If you are as stiff as a board, it's very typical for bodybuilders to have a lot of just general stiffness, whether that is just anatomical stuff. You're going to miss out on some passive like reflexive ability because you can't get into that yield and allow the tissue to be taken through just slight bits of length. Like everyone talks about, like when you do a pogo leap, you need to be as stiff as possible. I'm like, no, because when you do that, look how, like, okay, great, you're really stiff, but propulsively, you're a bag of shit. You're going nowhere. We're trying to bounce an ironing board right now, and ironing boards don't bounce, brother. You need to have some sort of length to what you're doing. It just has to be length at a very fast speed. So it might not look like a lot to the naked eye, but we slow it down. You're like, oh yeah, you can see a yielded position there for sure. Not everything can be purely overcoming because we're not steel pipes. We are multi-layered like tissues. We have tendons and fascia and muscle and bone. So there has to be a yield to it. So I'm a big advocate for getting in and out of or breaking down inhibited zones to allow the body to yield slightly to then be able to create more reflexive and passive forces rather than everything always having to be the muscle creating force.
Yeah, I mean, and like you're talking about, it's like a lot of bodybuilders, they don't have that ability at all. And it's such a controlled environment in the gym that you kind of don't always need it to not get injured, but so many fucking bodybuilders get injured, like throwing a fucking weight up, like trying to catch it, like on their so it's
Yeah.
like the most random shit. They slip in the snow and they're fucking, there's Evan
Yeah.
Centopani ripped both of his quads off, because he can't like catch himself at all. I mean, it can happen to anybody, but when you have like I said, no yield at all, no ability to like react, like I think that's something because you rarely see like these high level bodybuilders fuck themselves up in the actual movement. It's as soon as they're out of that
Yeah.
control situation.
Yeah. Well, and they're almost like they're a ticking time bomb in that they very much they have an enormous capacity to produce massive force, but they can't control that force. So it's like so if you do something that is like, oh, I'm just going to hurl this massive dumbbell up to my shoulder, but then I don't have the ability then to just catch it and or to just yield it in a way, and like you say, you then put yourself in a hugely vulnerable position, and it's like, well, shit, it's just become like the stupidest injury possible, and you're now out for 8 to 10 weeks.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, that happened with Nick Walker. He's one of the big Nick Walker, you heard of him? He's like a
Yeah,
top five Olympian. He had to miss the Olympia because of that. Um what like thinking about the tiers again, so I mean ping is super explosive, right? Like
yeah,
basically so what it sounds like is as explosive as you can while you still propulse like efficiently. You don't look like a
yeah,
jackass essentially. And then
yes.
light is less ground contact time fast. Is medium, is that the more rhythmic one? It's still quick, but is it like rhythmic at all?
Yeah, yeah, it's yeah, very much. So the submaximal stuff, you're looking at smooth, rhythmical, controlled movement, but there still is you're still trying to produce some good force doing so. Whereas the light stuff is just way less force. You're still going to try and get that rhythmic idea into it, but often it's the case that when you add a little bit more intensity, your body will create a little better rhythm with that. So I mean, it does depend who you're talking about. If you're talking
Yeah.
to someone that's not doing any of this, the light is where they're going to find rhythm, and then they get to medium, and they're like, "Holy shit, I can't create rhythm here." So, um, I see it in that if I can create rhythm in that environment, like I could be dangerous in that environment, and that's great. I can really create adaptation. If I'm completely out of rhythm, out of sync, then I'm more of a danger to myself. Like
Right.
I'm firing incorrectly. I'm in the wrong position. Um, and ultimately, it probably leads to a drop actually in performance metrics that don't provide you with the adaptations that you want. So if something is way too intense for you, you're going to lack rhythm. You're not going to be able to consolidate all of that force in such a fast time frame. So you spend more time on the ground. You don't get the adaptations that you want with the brain, with the tissue. So if I can get a lot more people to be doing more rhythmical or movements where I can sting the ground here, but it's not crazy in terms of its intensity, but I'm getting a lot out of that. And ultimately volume becomes your greatest adaptation, you know, metric. The more you do of it, the likelihood is the greater the adaptation. People
Yeah.
go, "Oh, I'm going to do lots of this intense forms of plyometrics," and I'm like, "How many landings you do this week?" And they're like, "Well, I got up to doing about 35 to 40 landings," and I'm like, "Cool." I got athletes that are doing 400 landings of medium tier, and you're like, "I wonder who's going to have the adaptation." So that's why I kind of try to keep the medium tier still relatively high in intensity, but you just take the edge off that. It's crazy how much more you can do. It's almost like 5 times the volume, 6, 7 times the volume in certain cases. So yeah, it's
Is medium's the most volume you can handle?
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, obviously light could be, but I'm like, light is gonna it's gonna get you into the medium tier volume. Medium
Yeah.
tier is where you want to get to, and is where you want to eat up all your volume.
So is light more like a warm up? What do you use light
Yeah, I
for?
would use it for a warm up. I use it for getting people into plyometrics. I use it for, just let's not just warm up the tissue, but warm up the neuromuscular system. If I use light to the less force, the more variety, the more complexity I add to it. The more intense it gets, the less complexity and variety I can add to it. So if I'm coming back from an ankle sprain, I'm going to use a ton of different directions of light tier movements because I need to remap that kind of connection with my brain and my ankle. So that tends to be the way that I kind of attack it is more variety in the light tier. So cool, I explore a little bit, and then medium tier, I'm upping it a little bit. It's a little more linear, a little more simplistic, more rhythmical. And then the ping tier is like you either go for height, distance, or speed, and you choose the movement pattern to execute that in.
And that's just got to be quick though. So if you're going for height, it's still got to be super quick reaction
Still
time.
got to be height. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's still got to be fast. Yeah.
So you're talking about the yin and the yang, and I'm talking about the rhythmic moves, and it makes me think about kind of like structure types and like ISA types. Are you familiar with the whole ISA thing?
Yes. Yeah.
So like for me as a wider kind of more just typical bodybuilder. I mean, I'm looser. I got way more expansion than most bodybuilders. Just like I've got no rhythm. Like I can yield, I can do the deep tier really fine, and but it's
Yeah.
like when I try to get into that rhythm, it's so hard. Where someone else, totally different archetype, that might be their jam. So you talk
Yeah.
about the yin and the yang. Do you program that in the plyometrics too? Do you try to give people like what they're naturally less good at to kind of fill those gaps?
Do you know what? I used to do a lot more of that, and now I lean a lot more into people's superpowers, and I try to, I would say more. I'd provide like the anecdotal dosage, like just enough to just like let's see this develop because I don't want to force so much into the system that it is just so foreign to how you because you probably can still find rhythm in the deep tier, right? You get into it, you're like
Yeah.
slow, controlled rhythm. So for me, I'm saying, well, for me to improve that rhythm in more stiffer based realms, I'm probably going to merge like some of those deeper ranges. Okay, now I want you to get a bit faster in those deeper ranges. And then over weeks, that range becomes less and less. And I'm just going to gradually stand you up. You're still you're still going to use deep tier movements to prime the body, but I'm now going to try and get you to express that rhythm at a faster cadence. I'm not going to force you into that hole though and say this has to be really fast. You have to do it stiff and tall because that's the best thing for you. And I'm like, well, the best thing for you is the thing that you are really good at. And we are very quick to be like, oh, you have this weakness and therefore we must attack this weakness. I'm like, no, no, no. Continue to lift your strengths because that's why you are who you are. And then we play with finding middle grounds and moving within a bandwidth that gets closer to that weakness. I think that serves you a lot better in dynamic movement. And then over time, you do see that change. You see that weakness improve and it becomes more subconscious and less conscious of being like, I can't organize my body at that speed. And like, ultimately, the brain is the thing that takes a long time to catch up.
Yeah.
So
That,
it's,
that's interesting. That's kind of how I've changed recently with like my strength training with a lot of people. I was doing a lot of, a little bit more skewing them towards what they're not good at. And now like 80-20 now, unless
yeah,
I'm trying to really just go after movement options or something. And
sure.
so you talked about like the ankle sprain and doing light tear in different directions makes a lot of sense. Obviously, there's an acute phase where you got to be, out of the
For
plyo
sure.
potentially. So, I mean, is there a way to think I don't like to use like corrective, that's such a weird word,
Mm.
but like, is there a way to do like corrective or like rehabilitative plyometrics that you do?
Absolutely. So again, we like I talk in kind of bandwidths of space, of velocity, of force in which you're going to receive, and it kind of tends to be the way. So let's say we have an ankle issue. Where do we go to get dynamic movement into the system to start training the brain, even when the tissue is affected and it's still quite not past that acute phase of recovery? Do you know what I get them to do? I get them to do deep tier work. The ankle was receiving far less force in terms of an unstable format. It's not as rapid. The contact time is a lot longer. Obviously, I have to mitigate problems if they get discomfort with the shin traveling forward and they're getting into deep dorsiflexion. If that's discomfort, then cool. Do you know what I do? Front foot elevate a foot,
Yeah.
freeze the shin, and then it doesn't allow it to drop. And then you have this really solid base to work out of. And what do? I move that bandwidth across to being like, well, how do we increase that velocity? I just, like mentioned to you, how I would probably train you. I gradually stand that person up to getting to a stage where they can explore more movements at a faster rate in a stiffer position. Because ultimately, tissue, when it's injured, doesn't want to be loaded with a lot of force. And it definitely doesn't want to be loaded with a lot of force at high speeds. So, and I could kind of go the same way of treating, let's say, an anterior knee problem patella tendonitis. What do I want to do? I'm probably going to do just a lot more upright, light plyometrics because the system is creating a lot. It holistically will look after the knee in that position far less than if I put them in a deep tier split exchange, right? They're going to be really exposing the anterior knee at that point. So we do a lot of work stood up and we graduate them down into more deeper ranges where they can get to a point where they can handle that. And what I tend to do is I do a lot more oscillatory formats. So we move within a very small space. We don't necessarily come completely out of the takeoff, or we use the light tier in a way where it's not like aggressively flexing and extending the system. So if I move within that bandwidth and I'm like, cool, I want to expose the knee to a bit more overload at a deeper range, you know what? We drop that bandwidth down and we oscillate a bit lower, or we oscillate through that whole bandwidth now. We're dropping down an inch, we're dropping down an inch. And now can I introduce faster and bigger drops into that motion? And that tends to be this kind of just drip feed of stimulus over, you know, let's say a 6 to 8 week period. And I find it is phenomenal in the inhibition piece because with injury there's just such inhibition. I don't want to load the tissue like that. The pain receptors are telling me to not load the tissue like that. So we meet them halfway. You're like, oh, I kind of feel a little bit scared here, but let's start slow. Let's start in a stable, stable environment. Move through that, oscillate through that. Okay, cool. I can oscillate a bit faster. Now I can leave the ground. Cool. Now I'm leaving the ground. I'm getting this aggressive hit that the tissue's actually okay with. And I gradually just increase more velocity into that, or more velocity into that deeper range if I'm talking about the deep tier. And that's been a real, surefire way to get people into dynamic movement and to get them in pretty quick. Like talking about the acute stages of ankle sprains, like I try to get people landing very early in ankle sprain processes because it's like I talk about it being a highway from your brain to your ankle. You have ran that highway millions of times, and now someone has come in with a bulldozer and just bulldoze right through those connections. You have to remap that connection, especially if you've had ligament like damage through that ankle sprain. Because if you've damaged the ligament, then it shows us that there's instability in that joint. And the number one reason why people resprain is because they don't relearn how to land. It's not everyone goes through a very similar strengthening process. You're like, well, yeah, the ankle was strong. Why did you re-roll? You don't know where your foot is in space.
Yeah.
When I put my foot out here again, the likelihood for me to laterally turn over on it is just tenfold because I don't know where that foot is. So if I don't know where it is, I can't anticipate the ground. The connection is too late. I don't brace, I don't prepare, and I don't holistically create that stiffness to pivot off of it. So my foot goes, oh, there's the ground. And if it then registers when you've hit the ground, it's too late. You're doomed. So you don't get that control.
That's why
So
basketball players always rolling their fucking ankles and shit, right? Um,
it's yeah, yeah.
do you, sorry, you're into the foot stuff, the foot mechanics deep? Do you know Gary Ward?
Yeah. Again, it's been a point that I've kind of educational stuff I've kind of touched upon, but not gone massively deep into it. But I do understand a lot of the principles.
Yeah. I have him supposedly coming on. I like to dive in, like I said, I like to dive into the specialists,
Phenomenal.
Yeah,
Love that.
like I
Love
said,
that.
people that have like one field that they really are experts in. I think there's so much value in that.
Oh, so much.
I think it's really good to do the foot elevated too, especially, coming back from injury because like you said, that's gonna, give you less dorsiflexion. Essentially, it's an earlier propulsive representation. You're gonna have more ER to turn into IR. So that's a lot of times what I recommend bodybuilders to start with is you can tell me what you think if I've been recommending something stupid, but what I've been telling
No.
them is maybe unweight themselves depending on how big they are, use some bands potentially and start with like the deep tier yielding with the DC block or something, maybe one or two of those in
Yeah.
front of you.
Yeah.
Because like I said, most bodybuilders, they're living in that late propulsion. They're way far forward. So that gives them an ability to restore a little bit. Do you think that would potentially be a good intro?
Yeah, yeah, it's a good idea. And you know what? I'm starting to because I work with an NFL Combine prep group every year. Like we're in the midst of it right now. And we specialize in the gym that I work out of, Triple F here in Knoxville, specializes in offensive linemen and tight ends. So we deal with the heavier guys. So I'm starting to get an idea as to if you weigh more than 300 pounds, I think that there's like I'm totally in an agreement that you can start off with some assistance, whether it's hands on, like get in a rack, put your hands on the safeties either side. That's a perfect place. If you want to just wrap a band underneath your armpits and just set yourself, don't hold it, put it underneath your armpits. Because if you start pulling on it, we don't know how much you're getting out of the band. If you're like, well, that band's not doing enough for me, wrap another band around. Like we start on the colors in our gym. We've got like, I think it goes like green, and then it moves to like a black band, and then a pink band, which is like the lightest one. And we've gradually graduated the guys to doing that, and it's been massive for them. They've just really got into being able to control that, and they're the same. They live massively in that propulsive component. Everything is up and forward.
Yeah, that's
That's literally
the
their
whole
job.
jam. Yeah.
That whole jam. So we get them into a split stance to sit back into it, and I teach front shins vertical, spine and back quad is vertical. To sit in that is horrendous. To have
Dude,
like a
I do that
natural
all the
split,
time.
it's horrendous,
They
right?
hate it. Everybody fucking hates it.
Hate it. Everyone wants to just get over that front leg. They want to bring that back knee in. And so, yeah, suspend yourself if you need to, if you're over 300 pounds. If you're like 250, I think you're just bitching. Just suck it up. Oh, genuinely, you're like, we've got plenty of big guys. Like I've got 330-pound offensive linemen that are not using bands at all. So like there are other people doing it, and these boys are as stiff as shit. So like they live externally rotated into this like they do not want to get into these narrow places and get into length at narrow stances. So yeah, if you need to use it, then use it. But I love the idea of front foot elevating. I think the front foot elevation also forces a lot more of that oscillation. Like you're not going to drive out of it. Just get down there and stay down there.
Or even like, do you do you do some like the pulses at the bottom, the
Yeah,
oscillations
just
in the
pulse,
bottom
just
range?
oscillate
Yeah.
in the bottom. People will hate you for it.
Yeah.
That back leg's vertical drop and like exposing that hip flexor to that length is just awful. It's just like it's torture, but the feedback that it gives it and like how much it translates then to if you just take them off of that front foot elevation and just get them to go through like a normal split stance, the confidence that people have in that back knee dropping down is phenomenal.
Yeah.
Like I have it, if you have an ACL client, oh my gosh, they hate that ACL knee going behind them. They hate it at length. So I get them to get in that position. Front foot elevated, get that ACL knee behind them. Let me see you drop into it. I don't want to go there. I don't. Okay, cool. Let's just bounce here. Let's just bounce where you're comfortable. Now just tease me like, half an inch deeper, half an inch deeper. So let me see how that goes. By the end of like a couple of sets, the range of motion improves straight away. Obviously, they have to be a certain stage of ACL rehab. They've gone through the right components of it. But when they're ready to move, like
Yeah.
it's just such a phenomenal stimulus. So yeah, I think you're going about it the right way for sure in terms of the deep tier stuff.
I mean, I'll put clients in that just static. Sometimes I'll put their, I mean, I'll just sometimes just hold them, have their back foot against the wall. So where they have to like anchor that. And it's like, well, sometimes I'll just check the table test just to show them like how much fucking things have improved. And, a lot of times people think you got to like do super boring, like breathing work to create space. But, if you've got the right setup and you're not just compressed fucking everywhere, like you can usually create the space through your work.
Yeah.
Yeah, with your athletes. So like I have a triple jumper. I did consult with Olympian dude. They're fucking freaks of nature, right? Like just these kinds of athletes. So like say you were programming for someone who's like a jumping sport, like that's what they do, which is I
Yeah.
guess that's what you started with. That was your main jam. So
Yeah.
how is that different volume wise? Let's say you had someone who's like a triple jumper versus
Mm.
like a basketball player where they
Mm.
need to do it a little bit less, totally different kind of ways. Do you program things totally different for those two athletes?
Yeah. Yeah. I'll so I look at their overall program, and if you're a triple jumper, like, and you're doing regular triple jumping, like let's say you triple jump Tuesdays and Fridays or something like that, that's your ping tier plyometrics.
Okay.
Like if you suck on 2 feet or you struggle with hopping on one leg, which seems strange as a triple jumper because that's
Right.
literally your job. But let's say you do, okay, cool. Maybe we'll look at adding in some of those as a ping tier format. But other than that, you're getting that work in. So the body of work is natural to a triple jumper to be doing a lot of medium tier plyometrics anyway, especially on one limb. So again, we're monitoring what that looks like. Like, cool, my track coach is having me do this stuff. Deep tier stuff is great for them. Phenomenal stimulus, yin to the yang idea. Eric actually used to have us do deep tier stuff in the high jump pit. He used to call it super soft work.
Oh yeah.
So we would do like a big technical high jump session where we're doing maybe 20 full approach high jumps, and your system is
And the
fried
whole
by the
thing's
end
in
of
the
it.
sand,
So
the whole part of
the
it.
whole thing's in the high jump bed, in the big
Oh yeah,
sponge.
yeah, yeah,
We're doing deep tier in the sponge.
yeah.
You spend what feels like a week every landing that you're on it. So like that was another like quietly clever thing from Eric. He's like, if you don't get deep enough, then we will just make you spend longer on the ground
Yeah,
by putting you in a deep environment,
yeah.
in a soft environment. So that was a really clever way to get a different form of muscular tension. So I often give that to my athletes. I'm like, you can do it in the sand, you can do it in the high jump bed. And often the anecdote is that their joints feel great after a high jump session or a triple jump session. Like it is just torture on your lower legs, on your knees to do some of the landings that you do on the track in spikes. So to do that sort of stuff and to just get massive blood, honestly, I think the blood pump of just circulating a lot and getting a lot of the waste products out, like people say, I'll go and do a cool down. Like that could be like the best way to just get some blood flow going in a different format. Like take the tissue through length. So that's important. The basketball side of things, what's interesting is that basketballers actually don't jump that much.
That's what I'm saying. It's like
It's like
explosive when they have to, but not that
it's like
often.
4% is
Yeah.
maximal jumping in basketball, and that comes from some really good data from NCAA Division 1 basketball. Okay, it might be a bit different in the NBA. It probably isn't. It's probably even less in the NBA.
Especially nowadays,
Um,
all the threes, right?
all the threes, all the you know, I'm a 10-year vet. I'm not grabbing rebounds like it's the last thing I do. You know what I mean? Unless you're tracking Dennis Rodman, who's jumping for everything, and a lot of it's just very concentrically based. Like I'm jumping up to grab a rebound. It is static position, jump up and explode. It's a different format to actually like landing and taking off. So so where I've really pushed and tried to develop stuff with basketballers is cutting and changing direction with deep tier stuff is phenomenal. Like basketballer's job is to stop on a dime. It is to decelerate in and out of movement. And where I think their money's made is in um, when I drop into a position, can I smoothly get back out of it? Or do I drop down into a position with that opponent and I'm sat here and that guy's then changing back? Like James Harden is one of the best movers because he gets in and out of movement really effectively. Whereas you watch a defender, they like take a back pedal for him to use that jab step and then he steps back. They're so slow to react to get back to that like step back. And when he hits that three, that's where he dominates. It's in and out movement. Trey Young is exactly the same. Like they're very good to change their direction of momentum. So if I get a guy that really struggles with that, we really chase that. So it's going to be longer contacts, but it's like how can I accelerate into it hard and get back out of it smoothly? And I think that that's a lot more of their game. So I tend to go there. I tend to use a lot of deep tier movement. It's also a sport of big people. Big people, long people don't like to go through long ranges of motion. Phenomenal for their knees, phenomenal for their joints. Get moving through range, and especially taking that eccentric load through range. And then just general dynamic plyos. We're using light tier, we're using medium, we're using ping tier, and that's going to be spread throughout the week. But ultimately, a lot of these boulders need rhythm, and they love rhythm. So I give them rhythm. I give them whether it's medium tier stuff, whether it's deep tier stuff. It's phenomenal. Corey Schlesinger, who's I think he's the director of performance at the Detroit Pistons. He's been doing a sequence of movement. This is like a deep tier movement, but you're using like a kettlebell or a dumbbell, and you're switching hands as you drop into a split stance. You pop back up, you change hands, and then you switch to the other side. My gosh, as soon as you get that implement in your hand or that external weight, it's like bum, 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 bum. And ballers just pick it up like that.
Yeah, I was
It's
thinking that must be
just a
natural.
thing. It's just a rhythm. So, what a clever way to get like a dropping eccentric load into a player if you just give them a silly thing like a kettlebell in their hands to just switch in and out of. So, yeah, I feed into that. I feed into what they love, and then just give them little dosages of some more of the reactive work.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
they got the Achilles injuries sometimes in basketball, so I can see when you want to keep the
Yep.
pings and everything in there.
Yep.
Um,
Yep.
one of the people that I tend to work with a lot, like lately, it seems because I just get the more fucked up people, is like these kind of almost hypermobile, although hypermobile in quotes usually just means you're hypermobile in like 1 or 2 segments.
Yeah.
Um, but if you do have these people that just have excessive space, like
Mm.
do you approach plyometrics any differently, or is there something that like something I've seen you do that Dr. Pat spoke on that he liked to do for hypermobiles was like the false throws, I think, is like a fake throw with the medicine ball.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Is it? I mean, I guess it's all to do with how well your body can decelerate
Yeah,
and
exactly.
and create
Decelerate and like
stiffness, right?
not just bounce around and like control it out.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly, exactly. So again, there's something to almost to that movement that I was speaking to about Corey Schlesinger is that this like drop and react catch has very much has that sensation to it, and it's like, is it the case of when I drop and react to the bottom of the movement, can I control that jolt and shock? Or do I have that laxity of being like, I have no body control. I'm like a wet noodle.
Yeah, I'm
I
thinking of somebody with hips
just,
hiking. They're that fucking lava lamp. I don't know if they could do that.
yeah, yeah, exactly. So again, I look at positions that they can handle like moments of stiffness. And then I look at places where they're really vulnerable. A lot of the time, it's actually in the deep tier movements that they're really vulnerable, like bottoming out
Yeah.
kind of sensations. So I play to both ends of that spectrum. We do a lot of upright stiff stuff, and then I get them at the deepest ranges of a deep tier movement, and we oscillate there, and we gradually introduce like a sudden eccentric dropping pattern to that. And it's like hit, control, don't hit and then yield. I want you to hit and stabilize. What does that look like? How does your body configure that? And ultimately, like I've worked with hypermobile high jumpers. They were able to take off effectively and organize. It is so related to brain control and how the system and the neurological system can contract and signal everything to work simultaneously. So if you don't teach that part of movement and looking at how the body is sequencing control, stacking effectively, like being in the right positions, um, you can throw all the force you want to them and be like, oh yeah, the body will just, the stronger they get, the better they're going to be able to handle it. And you're like, no, that's not the case. It is not the case. There has to be the neurological lens to it. So that's more so of where I try to chase that is it's like, yeah, taking it to the extremes. Also feeding into the comfort of where they can still create a little bit of stiffness and control, and then just feeding more speed, more depth, more sudden changes, and just drip feeding it in. And as soon as you lose that quality, take a step back, hammer the volume that they can handle, and that's fine. Maybe slightly change that variance of movement pattern, um, direction of movement, and just explore a little bit in that kind of amplitude of movement that they can handle.
Yeah, I think that's really good. Like Pat was talking about, he called them lava lamps. How like, anytime they start to like try to transfer force or do anything with hip flexion, you'll see them like do some weird shit in their spine. So if you keep them pretty upright, they don't have that chance to melt everywhere. And then
Yeah.
I think like you talk about these people just hang on tendons and ligaments, and really they don't have like any other way to like yield it. Also, I think if you kick them at that bottom tier right before they're just in no man's land, just hanging on structures like passively, and like you said, you oscillate through there. I think that's probably pretty effective.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, I remember we used to. I mean, it's probably mean, but we laugh at a couple of like. There was always a time frame of like a young group of female javelin throwers where they're obviously going through puberty, where they're probably hitting like 13, 14, and they have just so much laxity in the
Yeah.
system. It's like they plant their leg and the whole of their body is like you say, it is like the hip loses it, the spine loses it. So they get this big dump of their chest, their neck whips late, the arm comes through late, and it's like It looks like it takes like a about 3 seconds for them to release the actual javelin, and it just comes through like this whoop, 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 as it throws, and you're like, look, they just cannot sequence that. They can't put it together, create system stiffness, and then allow there to be a pivot point over that moment of touchdown. It's like hit sequence of events happens, and then I'm like, oh, now I've got to pull on it. So, like you say, it's not hanging on to that bone and ligament and tendon and stuff. So, yeah, it's a long journey. I think
Yeah.
it is. It does take a long time to figure that out, but you can train it. I believe that within
Oh
18
yeah.
months to 2 years, you can get a phenomenal change to that.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen a lot of those people, at least in the weight room side. Like now, I can see them directing tension so much better. Like you can see your pecs growing now, like pumped where it never used to happen before.
Yeah,
Um, so we
yeah.
talked a little bit about ways to introduce plyos for like big ass people. Do you kind of
Mm.
use the same strategy if you were working with like an older population? Like you just want them to use some support when they first start, if they're, I'm talking like late 60s, early 70s, not really been an athlete
Mm.
ever.
Yeah, do you know what? It's interesting. I think we're very quick to think that people can't do a lot.
Dude, I gotta tell you this real quick. I've told this story once, twice, but it's I asked my great grandma once when she was like 80 years old. I was a little kid. And I was like, "Can you jump?" I said, "I don't think you can jump." She's like, "Yeah, I can jump." She fucking jumped a couple inches in the air, and I was like, "Oh," and I was
And you're
like,
like,
"You can," but you're right, exactly. Like we
yeah,
think they're
yeah.
incapable of anything.
We do think that they are completely incapable. And like I said before, the body is very good at self-prescribing. Like, okay, I get it. You see those uncle races at Thanksgiving online, right? I get it, I get it. But
Usually
like,
some booze involved.
but well, yeah, there's also that. But if you're on the spot, I think that you can control what's happening. So honestly, with a lot of older clients, like just bouncing on the spot is fine. Like you don't have to do it fast. You just have to bounce on the spot. I want to see you leave the ground. I want to see you hit the ground again, and I want to see you leave it again. Again, can you do it in a sequence? Give me 5 of those in a row that is smooth and controlled. As soon as you take it to a place of like, oh yeah, we've got to get onto something, we've got to get over something, you're like, absolutely not, absolutely not. Like the focus has to be on what you're doing on the ground and not how you're trying to, achieve a goal, and that is to get onto the box or to get over a hurdle.
That's a good point. Once you have a goal in mind, it changes like everything.
Changes everything. Changes everything. Even the best movers in the world make things look terrible when you stack a load of hurdles in front of them. So make the internal focus on, how can I stack my body effectively? How can I try to be more reactive? The deep tier stuff definitely could be a little more. I think you need a little bit more focus. I think you do need to, you know, maybe get them in a. I just get people in a squat rack. I'm like, the safeties are there. If you need them, put your hands on them. If you don't, great. Take them away or just have them there. And that sometimes I just stand by a client. If you need me, just grab my hand. Or my hand will be hovering in a place where your arm is going to be able to drive down into so that you can create stability. Sometimes you can literally just get a client to just hold onto an arm bar like that and they start to move through it. And then within 10 reps, they actually kind of let go.
Yeah.
So it is familiarity and it is saying, oh, my brain is so inhibited in actually what my body can do. And over time, I actually just need to allow my body to just do. And don't be shy in giving people larger volumes into set, because often the case is that you go, cool, we're going to do 10 landings, and they get to landing 7. And you're like, well, now you're finding rhythm, and then you're like 3, 2, 1, finish, and you're like, well, shit, we didn't get allow people to get into flow. So I'm like, so sometimes I'll do a set where we're like, right, we're going to do 10 landings in this set, but I need you to find rhythm before we hit the 10 landings.
There
So
you
I'm like,
go.
say we're just bouncing on 2 feet, right? We're bouncing, we miss one, a little bit off, go 1, 2, 3, and then you find the rhythm. The worst thing you can do is like cut someone whilst you're in rhythm. So I just go by, cool. If you're going to monitor volume, cool. You can still monitor the volume. I get it, but don't be shy of doing 2 sets of 30 rather than, you know, let's say 4 sets of 15, 5 sets of 15. Just do the two bigger sets. You're going to get way more bang for your buck in that because they're going to find rhythm and they find flow. And once you find flow, I think you start to send neurological signals a lot greater and better. And I think once you're relaying that over and over and over again in a given moment, not in broken segments, I get this like, I'm just kind of putting this out there into the universe and saying that I get the vibe that that would be a stronger signal than it would be into segmented parts. So, and it's ultimately feedback for emotional and fear-based inhibition. It's feedback for the brain actually to just build stronger neural signals, in my opinion. And cool, 2 sets, we're done. Move on. Great. Like that's people like that. They like that vibe. So, um,
Um, nice, dude. Appreciate it. What does your workout look like? Like I'll just picture you just jumping around. I'm sure you do other shit, right? Like what does your non-plyo work look like? What's your split?
yeah. So, I mean, look, I've got to say the last like I'd say 5 to 8 years. It's been a really weird journey for me. I weighed 165 pounds at 6'3" as a high jumper. I never had an ounce of musculature in my upper body. Like obviously, like I did plenty of of leg strength work when I was an athlete, but upper body wise, I genuinely was like there was like two bones hanging off of my torso with my arms. Like fat doesn't fly, nor does mass when it
Yeah.
comes to jumping high. You just can't carry mass. And that's like Olympic high jumpers that are about 6'2" to 6'5", and they weigh between like 155 and 165.
My triple
Like
jumper. If you looked at him, you'd be like, "Oh, that guy's an Olympic triple jumper."
exactly. So there was definitely a journey of me trying to gain some weight, but it's been a really weird journey in that like I'm so like people are like, well, you can move really well now. And I'm like, I weigh 210 and believe me, I can't move well. In my little world, I don't move well. So yeah, I've gone through a bit of a phase of trying to just feel a bit better in how I look aesthetically for sure, put a bit of upper body mass on. I've always struggled. I'm just I was just predisposed with what my parents gave me in terms of I've never been a big eater. It's always a strange thing. I've never been like I've had a lot of friends around me that were just big eaters and they're just enormous guys now. It's just natural for them to just eat a ton, grow, and they can just grow easily. So yeah, over the last few years, it's been like gain a bit of mass, gain a bit more strength because I can handle that with a bit more mass. So like my lower body strength has gone up because I've just my spine can take a bit more
Yeah.
load now. So now it's kind of like I go through I probably train like 4 times a week. I'd like to get back into a bit more sprinting now. But I tend to go like my series of kind of dynamic stuff is that I have an elastic day, I have a reactive day, and I have a yielding day at the moment. So that's 20 minutes into then I'll lift. So I'll like my elastic day basically wakes my ass up from doing not a lot over the weekend. And then reactive day, I get to midweek and I'm like, I kind of feel good. So I hit it, and then Friday or Saturday comes around, I'm like, oh, I don't want to hit the ground again. So we yield. And I say that like the elastic stuff, I'm still doing deep tier. The reactive stuff, I might do deep tier work where it is deeper and I'm trying to pop out of it quicker. And on the elastic day, I'm doing fast and stiff stuff, but it's just sub-maximal work. The yielding stuff, I still might do some like high volume, like upright plyos, but I'm choosing probably 4 movements. I'm doing 2 to 3 sets of those movements in each of those sequences throughout the week, and then I'll typically heavy strength train. I'm looking at one big compound movement supported by a lot of kind of accessory work around that.
So do you bro
And
it out? You do like just fucking preacher curls and like incline hammer strength stuff, or you like all like barbell compound stuff?
Yeah, I do a lot more barbell. Like that would be my primary kind of movements, whether I'm squatting or pulling, or even doing an Olympic variation just for just enjoyment purposes. Because I've got into doing a little bit more rock climbing at the moment, like I'm exploring the insane hand and
Yeah,
grip
that's what I was
strength that
thinking.
rock
Yeah.
climbers have. It like, dude, I'm long. I've had no upper body strength the whole of my life. I've never had very great grip strength, and now I'm learning what actual grip strength is insanity. Like I can't tell you how strong these guys are. So I'm playing with a lot of that. Like I'm doing a lot of upper body pulling stuff, which I'm kind of enjoying. I'm doing something that I can't like just get away with doing. Like if I played pickleball, do you know where I'm good at in pickleball? I'm good at moving around the court well. Like, or I'm good at like, so it's like, how could I do something that is something that I've never been good at? I was reasonably good at climbing when I was a kid, and it's because I weighed
And you were
120
lighter. Yeah.
pounds.
Yeah, I didn't need
So
the strength.
yeah, I'm trying to figure out what I want to do and why I want to do it. But you know, I love to strength train. I love to, you know, try and get a little bit of hypertrophy work in there. But I think I like the hypertrophy work because it feels kind of therapeutic in a way in comparison to being a high jumper is so neuromuscularly taxing that you just feel like you just feel so flat all the time. And it's such a weird feeling to feel. Like unless you've gone through like big jumping phases, your body is just like if you normally operate here, it's like bottom of the pan all the time. Like even emotionally, you just walk around just depleted. Like I don't want to talk, I don't want to see you, I don't want to I don't want to do anything. So to get into something like hypertrophy work has been quite nice to just get a totally different sensation. Like I'm getting like a lot more pumping sensations, or I'm getting a lot more like muscular fatigue as opposed to like neuromuscular
Just
fatigue.
yeah,
So
whole
just a different
system.
thing. Whole system, it's just so different. So yeah, it's yeah, I'm still trying to figure that out, but I try to go with that 3 days a week as a stimulus. And ultimately, sometimes some days I send it with volume. I'm like, I feel good. I'm going for it. Other days I'm like in and out. I'm gonna do 30 landings and then I'm done. But I'm just touching it just to keep things hot. Because if I don't, it slopes off very
Yeah,
quickly.
right. Well, it's so much easier to maintain than gain, right? With anything. Are you
Oh
um
yeah.
are you doing like specific grip training stuff or just
A lot of hang work. A
yeah?
lot of hang work.
That's probably the
So
main thing, right?
I have a hang like a rock climbing board. Like we bought a house and just so happened to be that they were rock climbers, and in one of the bedrooms they had a rock climbing grip board.
Oh, that's cool.
So I've been trying to learn how to grip off of like two middle
Yeah.
fingers. It's damn near impossible. It's crazy. Like I've basically been going from a deep grip into like a less and less like more fingertip stuff. It's insanity. There is a few like grip strength gurus that I'm trying to follow some of their ideas, but it's insane how much that doesn't sometimes correlate with your ability to actually hang and engage the rest of your arm, given how much stability you're trying to create through your hand. Like even like I play with like taking my thumb away from some of the hangs, and I'm like, oh my gosh, how much does the thumb apply force? It's
Yeah.
insane. It's insane. Like take away a finger, how much does that apply force? And you're like, wow, it's truly like impressive to like learn more about this sort of stuff. So I think it's going to improve my coaching overall just to experience this journey of grip and pulling power and stuff. So, and also when I climb, like I compare it to just doing hanging stuff on a bar and on this, and I'm like, it's almost not anywhere near the same sport. It's a completely different thing. When I've got to get my hand laterally in a grip and my thumb in a different position, it's like it's just so different. So I love it.
Thanks. Dude, I appreciate your time so much. This has been awesome. I think, yeah, I mean, so you saw I shouted you out. I think your IG is so informative
I
and
appreciate it.
helpful to everybody. Like, what else do you have? Like, where can people learn all your shit besides just
Yeah,
going to your
so
IG?
Yeah, so I mean, going through the Instagram is a big thing. I'm doing more on YouTube as well now. So I'm trying to I drop a video once a week at the
Oh,
moment.
cool.
And just lessons in understanding, you know, how to build up to something that's maybe a bigger movement that looks pretty good, or you know, piecing together kind of elastic strategies that I did recently or reactive work. So that those are, you know, as a free resource, tap into the Instagram, tap into the YouTube. And then also we have courses that I run through my business plus plyos, and that's just plusplyos.com.
Are those like at
And
your own pace or are those like live
yep,
things?
so we have a self-paced course called the Introduction to Plyometrics coaching course. Great. If you've never done like any education in plyometrics, go learn there. Phenomenal. It's just such a great starting point. We've had like almost 1,700 coaches go through that now. So Yeah, really valuable. That also then leads into a more of an intensive course if people are interested in like a cohort based, which we do, which I think is pretty unique. We do theory lesson once a week, and then we do live training once a week. So the whole of the cohort does plyometrics live on a call with me.
That's cool.
So
I've
big,
never heard of
big,
that. That's pretty dynamic. That's cool.
big learning curves for people with like, I'm like, this is a theory, cool. Now come and experience it. And people are like, oh, this is eye-openingly different to what you observe with your eyes. Like to feel it and week to week understand it is truly changing. So that's our kind of step up, and that's an 8 week intensive course, which really is that's where you want to get to if you really want to deep dive into it, in my opinion. And then we have our Plus Pliers program, which is Netflix for plyometrics. You can come in, doesn't matter who you are. You can start from the bottom, or you can be at the elite stages. You can be in soccer, American football, Gen Pop. I've had figure skaters. We've had everything from parkour athletes to 40-year-old mothers. So
And
it's
that, what is that? Is that an app or is that through the website? Or what?
it is through, we use Team Builder as an app, and you can just plug and play. We have full programs with strength training, speed training. We have 2 a week sessions, 3 a week program inserts. We have plyometrics built into the 1x20 system if you wanted to do that. So it's got
Oh, that's
everything
cool.
you can think of with regards to plyos. It's just kind of plug and play. I don't want to think about it, just coach me. So
Nice.
yeah.
What's your next cool like big athletic thing you're working on with the pros? Is that the combine thing?
Yeah, the combine is the so we have in 2 weeks' time, the fellows will be at the combine. And they'll then lead then after that into they have a natural pro day that they go to their own school and also run back the combine tests. I also work with a lot of track and field athletes, and I work with a WWE superstar,
That's cool.
Joaquin Wild. So yeah, which is cool. He's a Mexican trained wrestler, so he's a
Oh,
high
so they're doing
flyer,
all the flying shit, right?
doing all
Like
the
Rey
all the
Mysterio.
all the fly. Exactly. Your
That's
man Rey
badass.
Mysterio. So yeah, so a lot of those sorts of things, big events in the summer come up for that. The big thing is the combine because it is so intense. It's like 8 to 12 weeks.
Where do you go for that?
So the actual NFL combine is in Indianapolis.
And you go there?
I won't be going this year, but we will have our other kind of our like head of performance. So I'm there. I do this. I'm the director of speed training basically for that. But we have like an overall kind of head of performance that will go out with the guys for that. It's kind of a weird one. Like you end up just sitting in a hotel watching the thing on the TV. So
Right?
it's
Yeah,
kind of
that's what I'm
like you
wondering.
might as well just be watching it at home.
Right?
So yeah. But other than that, yeah, I work with a lot of competitive track and field guys, and then yeah, a few bobslayers and stuff. So
Well,
yeah.
sweet, man. I'm glad I got you on. Hopefully you start. I know you said you were taking a little break. I remember I reached out to you earlier last year and I was like, you want to come on, bro? You're like, I got a podcast this year already. And then
I went through that phase. I think it was just so popular to get on podcasts, and I was like, just give me some time, and I will come back to it. And Angus mentioned how great the podcast was, and I was like, all right, I'm ready to rip it. So let's do
nice.
it.
Well, thank you so much, man. This was awesome. I really
I
appreciate it,
appreciate it.
dude.
Yeah, I
Have a
appreciate
good
it.
one, dude.